Tuesday. Stop knocking stuff over on my desk. Oh, oh man. So it's been a week. Oh man. Before we get into my dumb title, uh, Flatbed Aquatics. Hold on, Bentley rant? No, I don't rant that often. I'm not say like Michael from Michael's Fish Room. Uh, he's kind of the rant master, if you will, of the fish family. But yeah, man. I've got a week and a half till my wife's surgery. About so getting prepped for that. Mostly just trying to make sure we have everything we need here at the house for her. Um, and it's funny the things you don't think about, right? If you're just like normal day to day, but it's like, oh yeah, uh, if she wants to shower, she can't get her hands wet for like I think it's a week or two. It's a while, so we have to get like covers for her her wrists basically. But in order to do that, most of the ones you get are like come up to like here on your arm. Realizing how badly I'm showing that on camera. uh, and because she'll have limited use of both hands, she doesn't want to do like what I used to do. Is I remember the last time I had a surgery where I had to cover something, it was just like a plastic bag and a rubber band because I had both my hands, but she won't. So we got these kind of these things on Amazon that are designed for doing that. Just little things you don't think about, right? Where you're like, yeah, yeah. See, like office trash bags and duct tape, I would do that, or like rubber bands, right? But because she won't be able to like grip and do things, it makes it a lot harder. And so far, trying to get an exception at my work, but it's looking like I will not be able to work from home. Trying really hard, but it means that I'll be in the office my still usual amount. So yeah, yeah, yeah. It sucks. And they're moving me at work too, so I'm getting moved to a different building. And that building is another like 20 minutes further away from where I live. So my already relatively long commute will get even longer. Yay. It's like so stupid. So stupid. So needless to say. Yeah, it's the thing. Gotta deal with it though. Such is the nature of the tech world. I yesterday Meta laid off like 3,600 employees. And these are all their full timers, right? I'm a contractor. They hit all the contractors earlier, and I watched some people that I know who are very good get hit. And we watched several engineers that we know were like really good about fixing our bugs and worked really well with QA all get laid off. And some of the people who are the most notorious at almost never fixing bugs or taking forever to help or even update QA on what the heck is going on, they stayed around. From a QA perspective, right, as a person who tests things and is trying to improve the quality of things, it drives us crazy. But yeah, hopefully you don't eventually get moved into storage room B. My suggestion: keep a hold of your stapler. Don't let anyone take it. No, they'd probably put me in sub basement F. Oh, it's such a good Office Space reference, man. It's such a great movie. Lord. Anyway, I want to get into my should be a short topic. I say that knowing that I can never like keep my answers to anything short, but I said some clickbait title here. I got a little, one might say, triggered over the weekend as I saw a channel that I tend to like quite a lot, and I don't watch every video they put out, but I at least watch quite a bit of their stuff. In KG Tropicals, putting out a video entitled the worst video on our channel or the worst video we've ever made. That title upset me so much, and I use this very loosely. There's a little sarcasm here. But the title alone made me go from a pure logical perspective. If this is the worst video you've ever put up, why are you putting it on your channel? If you've been doing this long enough, you got a big enough channel. No video current time should be the worst video unless you've like done what some other channels have unfortunately done to themselves and kind of like hyper sold out trying to get some nice sponsorship, and then, you know, it pisses off most of the community. This isn't necessarily specifically fish. This has happened in a lot of other communities. It's happened with some crypto related things recently in a couple of channels too. But yeah. Tanya, it's like, I don't understand that. It was just a normal video, right? I kind of loathe really clickbaity titles, but I understand why people do it. And occasionally I will sort of do it. Yeah, I get it. Okay, so context helps. Like, John was sick, so Lisa was flying solo. But I've seen Lisa be the focus of a lot of videos, and they've never been bad. They're just different, right? I don't ever think any of the videos are bad because she has slightly different passions than John does, and she explains things in a way that is different than John, which might resonate better with parts of their audience, or even new people that might not watch her channel that often. It's like, Lisa has a much more of an affinity for planet tanks and a lot of other things, right? Food aquatics, you have me sweating for a second. Nah, man, your short videos you've put out lately have been great. They're super educational, which I like. A lot better than me, at least. I'm just a moron. But yeah, right, and there's that one too, right, Robert? It's like, if it's the worst, why even bother watching it? So it's one of those things where, like, I saw it and I was like, come on, can we not with this? Because you could have titled that in some other way. It could have been like, you know, when John's sick, what does Lisa do, or something. You know, you could have a little fun with it that indicates in the title, like, hey, there's not going to be any John in this video, and that might encourage extra people to watch that might not watch as frequently. Someone like, say, me, where, you know, I get alerts for every video they put out, but I probably only watch maybe one in every 4 or so, just because my attention is spread all over the freaking place, right? But I do like to watch what they're doing with some regular cadence, because I think they put out great content. See, I just think it could have been done better. And I know the reason why, right? It's because, unfortunately, like, us humans, we keep falling for it. We will keep clicking on the clickbait dumb stuff for the most part. And I know, like, there's going to be plenty of us who are like, I don't click on clickbait titles. How dare you, sir? But it's, you know, it's one of those things where human curiosity naturally gets us into those things. And oh man, it just drives me crazy because I feel like there are so many people, especially in fish, and this doesn't usually happen in my other hobby, which is whiskey, right? Thankfully, whiskey's pretty straightforward, but that's also kind of an older person's hobby, a lot like fish keeping. There's not as many young people. I know Leo's like, hey, how dare you? But, you know, it's a lot of us elders of the community, so to speak. I swear the average age of a fish keeper is like 48. But there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be really clear. That would mean that I'm technically on the young side of the average. But, you know, it's a hobby that tends to be a lot of people who grew up in an era where aquariums were more popular, at least for the United States. Very different in, like, parts of Asia, India, things like that, right? There are definitely... The hobby's significantly more popular outside of the United States in certain parts of the world, where it's more common to have an aquarium or multiple aquariums or ponds even at much younger ages than, say, here in the United States and parts of Canada. But anyway, it's just one of those things where, like, I'll give someone who's regularly here, might be like eavesdropping, I'm not sure, but aquarium domain, right? My buddy Jeremy, he's always doing some in my mind, is a crazy project because of the scale of things that he does naturally. He's building every day as a mega tank. Mega tanks to him are small tanks in some cases, like what a lot of us would consider a massive tank, say 600 gallons. That's like a tiny tank for for aquarium domain, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'll start building 1200s. Let's put two of them side by side. Yeah, this will go okay in front of the 4,500 gallon tank, right? All these crazy nonsense things that he's doing. But his titling is always very straightforward, right? And you know exactly what you're getting in every one of his videos. And even if they're 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, they're great, right? Because you're learning something, you're getting to see stuff that most of us can only dream of, right? How many of us can even comprehend where you would put that massive Predator Bay tank that's got the sharks in it, right? Or the 4,500 gallon. It's 33 feet long. 33 feet. Most houses are barely that long. Right? I mean, like, I know the house I grew up in, which was kind of big, but it was built back in the 50s. It was 40 foot. That's like the entire length of my house I grew up in, and it was kind of a big house, but it was in an area where most of the houses were that size. Like, my house is smaller than that by a significant amount, right? And I can't fathom having a 33-foot tank in my home anywhere, because I don't know that it's possible. So there's things like that. I feel like we could get away from those in some of our hobbies that are a bit more straightforward. I don't know. Maybe I'm ranting too much. Chat, tell me. Tell me, chat. Am I losing my mind? Paul Soteris says, speak for yourself. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I don't know, Paul. I don't know about the bushy part, man. You got the Mr. Clean going quite strong. But I definitely think you're a bit more bright-eyed and energetic than I am. Maybe that's because you get the luxury of getting to do a lot of things you like, as opposed to being tortured by meta, like I do on a daily basis. Oh man, I could grow a lot of hair algae in one of those tanks. Oh, lumpy dog. I think we all could. That's the amazing part, right? Is you look at so many of his tanks, and you start to get an understanding of a couple of things. Like, one, certain systems when you get to large scale, right? Because he's got in his 33-foot tank, part of it is the filter. Eyes are watering, and I don't know why. Probably I'm laughing too hard at myself being a dummy. But part of it is a bog filter, right? Like you'd use in a pond. But because of how many gallons it is, it makes sense. And that bog filter with all the plants that are in it, he's got all the immersed plants that are in the back, I think it's all peace lilies for the most part, if I remember correctly. I'm probably wrong, and I feel bad if I am. But, those things just do such an amazing job, and the water is great. You don't really see a lot of algae. Now, granted, it's got insane bioloads, but it's got insane capacity for that. It's one of those cool things where, like, my 40-gallon breeder right now, Running River, is just like an algae mess. It is a mess, but it leads us to a fun experiment. What can 5 little SAEs do, and how long does it take? And yes, I'm fully aware, just ripping it out and continually working on my parameters is the more effective measure of dealing with that algae mess, but that takes away the fun of an experiment. So, Oh, man. Okay. Bourbon Baller League. Good to see you, brother. The crypto. Yeah, there's the stupid girl who became a meme and had like overnight fame, did some crypto rug pull nonsense, and now she's in all sorts of hot water. That's more what I meant. Like, at least clickbaiting isn't actively trying to defraud people, right? We'll put it that way. Unlike some people that are like, there's some people who get some level of success and it feels like they immediately decide, like, how do I make even more ridiculous amounts of money by being fraudulent? It's just, I don't get it, man. I don't get it at all. Flatbed, if you're like me, you lost your mind a while ago. To quote the great Ozzy Osbourne, of all the things I've lost, I miss my mind the least. Robert, of the content is good, I'm back week after week. Title doesn't change it for me. Sure, yeah. For me, it's just like when I watch kind of intermittently, which is to say, like, I check in what I consider regular enough. Because there are some channels where, like, I won't watch them for 3 to 6 months at a time, and then, like, I'll binge a ton of their content in one shot to kind of catch up. A good example of that used to be like a lot of the smaller creators. So like Michael's Fish Room as an example. Rachel O'Leary from time to time, I would go and like binge a bunch of her content when she was making content back in the day, rather than watching everything every week, just because my time spread through all sorts of nonsense over the day. So it's not as organized and set for like a one a week type upload. And even I know that there are plenty of people like who watch my channel and will go away for a while and then come back and watch a few videos and go away for a little bit and then come back and watch a few videos, right? That's the nature of content creation. Danya, I miss Rachel's videos. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think for the time she was doing it, and probably up until now, she had the best like species profile videos. I think her videos on species profiles were probably the most combination of well put together and educational. Ryan Hoon-Aquatics, who's in chat, like he's been doing a few lately. His are phenomenal because they're fairly short. Mario, whatever happened to Rachel? So Rachel needed some pretty heavy surgery on her knee that, and there might have been some other things afterward. I just remember this is the part where she had a really big break and broke down a lot of her fish room. And because of the amount of time it would take to recover with her knee, and I think she got divorced as well, so her partner at the time was kind of leaving and would not be there to help, she basically had to break down a majority of her fish room because she wouldn't be in the physical condition to take care of it anymore. And I know there's some other stuff. I don't know the details, but I know that was kind of the big initial catalyst, if that makes sense, of where she definitely had to take a break, and then that kind of extended to some other things in her life. And I don't know the details, so I'm not going to speculate or try to say anything about it. I just know that I know she needed a knee surgery specifically, and that kind of brought her into bringing a lot of her fish room down because she wouldn't be able to physically take care of it correctly for a while. And then there was a divorce or a partner split. I can't remember exactly whether they were married or not, but that kind of added on to it. And I'm sure there's other things, right? We all go through some stuff. Everybody goes through something. I don't judge on those some things. I just hope that people are able to recover well and live a happier life. Rachel's videos were always accurate. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. She had such good information. She had such a wealth of experience. She did not have a barking dog like I do. You're fine. What are you guarding against? You barking at your sister, you dummy. You and your sister are barking at each other. You're half corgi, half Shiba. You're not a guard dog. My dogs. What do you do? What do you do? Oh, speaking of that barky butt, last Friday, that barky butt hurt herself. Gave us quite a scare. Yeah, you. Hello. 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 Yes, you. Come. You want to come lay down? No, of course not. You don't want to do anything that Dad wants you to do. But I woke up Friday morning getting ready for work, and she was acting kind of weird. And as I was like getting dressed, getting ready to leave, I noticed that she was like laying in an area where she normally doesn't lay and was shaking quite a bit. It's like, that's not my dog. So I walked over and gave her a few pets. And then she like shimmied over to the door and basically like blocked my bedroom door. And was sitting there shaking mostly her rear end quite a bit. And not like the happy waggy shake. It was like some kind of anxiety shake thing. And so I thought maybe she just like some sound spooked her or something and she wanted to look out the door. So I cracked the door a little bit and she went out and kind of bolted, and I say this closely, down the stairs toward the front door and like sat at that. And I kind of went downstairs trying to get her back up here where she hangs out most of the day. And she just would not get, basically, she attached herself to my leg and did not want to peel away and just was leaning into it really heavily. And so I went into the front room with my wife, and we were kind of sitting there trying to pet her and see what was going on, and felt her stomach, just make sure she didn't eat something. I hadn't seen like any throw up or any other accidents that would have indicated some kind of health issue. But she was just hard pinned to my leg or trying to hide under my legs at all times. And it was really freaking my wife out because she's not a morning dog. She's like, usually she's sitting in this chair that's right over here, and she will kind of just do this at most. It's like I put on some music for her on this little surface here, and then usually her mom comes and visits her like about an hour after I leave for work, and spends a bunch of time with her, and there's kind of a rotation in the house, right? But she's acting so weird, so we called a vet, and we were trying to get a hold of our vet, but they didn't open until a certain period of time, which is after I'm normally at work already. But we called an emergency vet, kind of told them a few things, and they were like, well, yeah, just try and do this and this to see if she calms down. And if not, give us a call back, or try calling your vet, see if your vet can see you. So I stayed home until my vet opened, called our vet, kind of told them what was going on. They were like, hey, I'm sorry, we're booked to the gills today. We can't get her in, but there are a couple of 24-hour walk-in clinics that can help you. We called 6 different clinics, and almost all of them that were near us had said like, hey, we're at capacity with critical patients, so we can't really take a walk-in that isn't critical. So we had to drive. I had to drive to Redmond, which is about an hour away, to get into a place that was open, and would allow walk-ins. And after everything, basically what it came down to is the thing that the vet observed the most was she was doing what's called short stepping. And what that means is basically, think of it like when we're limping, if we hurt our leg, how you're trying to get off that hurt leg as fast as possible. With dogs, they refer to that as short stepping, right? So if you see them taking very short steps, trying to get off a particular paw with putting that weight on that paw as fast as possible. And it was on the same leg that she had surgery on. So naturally there's some paranoia. And basically what it comes down to is she had a little twist or a tweak or something. Because by the next day, on a little bit of anti-inflammatories and some pain meds, she was just fine. Just fine. Thankfully, because there was nothing like super scary, right? We didn't have to go and do like x-rays or crazy blood work. And the doctor said like, hey, we can do this. We don't need to. There's nothing right away that makes me go, we absolutely need to do this. More than likely, we're looking at these couple of minor things, but if it persisted for a few days, then we would really want to look at potentially an x-ray or something like that. But yeah, just dogs. Donya, same here. My dog slipped on some ice, hurt his front leg, and was limping. Luckily, it healed itself in a few days. The whole backyard is frozen here in the Northeast. Yeah, last week we had a bunch of snow and ice, a bunch. I mentioned it briefly last week, and I kind of thought about doing a joking video about talking about like the snowpocalypse in Seattle and going to like my neighbor's yard that had maybe a quarter inch of snow in it, and like joking about how like, look at this poor family, they've been completely buried by the snow here in the Seattle area. Who knows if they'll be able to survive? Because I swear the people who live here, even those natives who've been here for a long time, like they see a dusting of snow and it is like the world is coming to an end. Everybody forgets like the simple things of like, you can drive, just drive slower and leave more space. It is just like common sense goes out the window and panic ensues. Now, granted, a lot of that is because this area is very hilly. We're in a very mountainous region, so there's lots of trees that fall. There's all sorts of stuff that happens with weird weather. But yeah, people just get like extra dumb, and man, it drives me nuts. And like, granted, when I used to have my old car, right, when I had my Mustang, it was like, oh, is there like 2 flakes of snow on the ground? I can't drive. Because that car just goes, turns into a death slide. Sounds like a clickbait title. Right, and that at least would have been joking and sarcasm. And I find it fine when, like, it is obvious humor that uses kind of a clickbaity title. But when it's like a straightforward video, it drives me kind of crazy. I don't know. I guess I'm a hypocrite now, right? Oh, man. Mustangs aren't great snow cars. No, they're not. They're not even great in a decent amount of water most of the time. But yeah. Paul Sotero. Jeremy's tanks, because of their sheer water volume, require less in the way of weekly maintenance, water changes, than the smaller tanks us mere mortals deal with. It's true. It's true. We had 3 inches of snow back in January. All of southeast North Carolina shut down for a couple days. Yeah, it's kind of wild because, like, to me, I would think that your area would be more prepared for it than mine. And I don't know why that just in my head is like, of course they would be ready for snow. Because out here it's like, it's snowpocalypse. Half an inch of snow has fallen, but we might get 2 inches overnight. Be afraid. The real problem is that, like, because we typically don't stay super cold the entire time, things melt and then you get layers of ice underneath a small amount of snow, and it gives people like false amounts of confidence, and they drive like complete morons and then hit ice and bad things happen, right? It's like, oh, there you go. What wide leaf plant would you use for a beta hammock? Oinky, good to see you as always. What wide leaf plant would I use for a beta hammock? So my personal favorites are usually things like lilies, but sometimes the lilies can be too soft and don't like hold up. It depends on the, like, red tiger lotus does a good job, but you kind of have to keep it trimmed short. What I really prefer is some of the broader leafed Anubiases, like standard Anubias barteri. Cophifolia is really good because it has this nice round one. Oh, look at that. Aren't you cute? Aren't you cute? Well, let's just go like this, and yeah, we're just going to do that one. Okay. Aren't you quaint? Some people, man, I don't get it. I don't get it. Some humans are just wired to be dumb. Wired to be dumb. Yeah. Yeah. Just, what's the point? I would think by now, if you dropped in regularly enough, or at least like even those who have problems with me, and I get it, not everybody's gonna like everybody, right? But how many times has someone come in and thrown some horrible insult or said something completely stupid, and I've ever reacted with anything other than usually like pity for them? Because if your form of entertainment is to basically be close to like one of my 10-year-old nephews and to like suck a fart out of my butt, huh, look at me, oh, I bet that'll get you upset. It's like, I feel bad for you. How crap is your life that like that's the thing that drives entertainment on like a fish stream? Like we talk about aquariums here. This is not like gaming where, you know, there is an inherent nature to talk a bunch of shit to each other. It's just so stupid. I don't know. I feel bad for a lot of people who get to that point in life where like your only way to find enjoyment is to try and be an asshole to other people. Like, how crap is your life if that's where you're at? I feel bad for those people, man. Like, I'm surrounded regularly by typically about 100 people who all share a hobby that I love to death, and we all babble and laugh about how dumb our hobby is at times. How could you ever like tarnish that wonderful feeling? I just don't get it, man. Anyway, that might be my rant. How stupid some people can be. Yeah, and I mean, let's be fair. The world right now is not in a great state, right? There's a lot of mental health crises. There are people who are going through identity crises. whether it is due directly to politics or not, I'm not going to get into that part. But usually, those of us in this hobby who tend to be a little more introverted, there's the weirdos like me who are very extroverted. We get to celebrate something that allows us to have an amount of peace by enjoying kind of contained nature in a way, right? It's that beautiful, wonderful thing about nature in a glass box in our homes that brings most of us a lot of peace, a lot of comfort, a lot of relaxation. At least that's what it does for me. I'm assuming most of you are on the same page, but I don't get it. I would make sense if you were in like a gaming stream to go to that, because that's just like the modus operandi of most like gamer mentalities is a healthy or unhealthy dose, probably unhealthy dose of being a jerk. Maybe it's the old man in me, man. I don't know. Yeah, that clickbait title draws them like moths to the flame. Oh, well said, new local. English, new local, Austin. We got there. Good to see you, buddy. I can't speak English, but good lord. Oh, okay. But catch up a little bit after my rant here. So to go back, I like Anubius's and also just like standard Java Fern because it does get wide enough as it gets healthy. Can be really good. You could use some of the swords. There are plenty of swords that stay a little bit lower and don't get as tall, and there are ones that get nice and tall, like a standard Amazon sword, that also get a fairly broad leaf to them that can work really well for your betas and kind of give them, rather than a singular hammock, like an almost network of stuff. My loaches love the Java Fern because it gives them all these areas just kind of flop. And loaches are quite a bit bigger and heavier, and yet they can flop in the Java Fern all the time. So there's lots of options, I think if I wanted to pick a specific one for a beta, I would probably go with Anubias Cophifolia, just because I like the leaf shape and the ruffle texture to it and the darker green it's got. Yeah, I just like that plant a lot. I don't know. You got lots of options, Oinky. You got tons of options. Pick your poison, so to speak. Ken 3D, my 06 GTO is the same. One flake and it's all over the road and can't move. Oh, I can remember like early on when I had my Mustang, we had a freak snowstorm that came out of nowhere, and I left early. It took me what is normally about a half-hour drive. It took me 3 hours to get home because I basically never got out of first gear, and every time I barely touched the accelerator, I felt the ass end of my car go, and the snow was just coming down hard. I think it was like the first time in about a decade that, and this was like 15 years ago now. It's been a while, where Seattle had got like 1.5 feet in a day, which like we never get snow like that. So it was kind of wild. Nowadays, I would just be like, "It's a chance of snow." No. Just gonna bunker in the house. Queen Ble of Ghosting. If I could read and talk at the same time, that would be impressive, wouldn't it? Will you be interested in saltwater tanks? So there's like kind of 2 saltwater tanks I'm interested in doing. Here's the thing. Right now, I'm kind of at like tank capacity, so to speak, in my home. And that's mostly because, one, I only have so much time to do my fish stuff, because I've also got to take care of my wife. I got 3 dogs, got all that kind of stuff, right? And 2, I have found over time that like the amount of maintenance I need to do is more efficient if it's all in one place. And the one place where I've got all my tanks right now, until I can kind of expand into a garage and be able to afford the work necessary to get my garage in that kind of shape, is difficult to expand. But what I have, I love, right? So the things I want to do in saltwater, I love the whole interaction of clownfish hosting in anemones. There is this phenomenal longtime aquarium that is this basically just massive super anemone in the Seattle Aquarium with a bunch of clownfish to live in it. And it's a huge display tank, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But it's basically just like one super old anemone. I mean, there are more than one, but like there's one that is absolutely monstrous that is the majority of the tank. And I love the way they wiggle, the way they swim. There's just a lot of things about clownfish that I really like. So if I ever did a true full salt tank with coral, that's what I would do. And I would put almost nothing else in it. Basically just the clowns and anemones, because I love those interactions. The most likely saltwater tank for me to do in the future, I won't say near future because that might imply that I have plans to do that sometime soon. This is kind of like if I get to a point of where I have the other things I want taken care of and I can finally dive into salt, which I have so many friends that try to get me into saltwater. Like, I swear every 3 months, one of a couple of friends will be talking with me like, so, when are we setting up your saltwater tank? Well, when are we doing it? When are we doing it? And that would be to do a macro algae aquascape, quotation marks. I don't really fully aquascape anything, let's be honest here. But then have Cinnamagil cyanodorsalis, which is the one brackish but can handle full saltwater quite well rainbow fish. It's a pseudomagil, right? We could play that semantics game, but we lump them in. We bowheads love them too. I just love their color and some of the crazy things that macroalgae do and how they look very similar to a lot of our plants, but get you some wild colors or some extra kind of wild textures to them. It just seems very fun to me. So that would be one that I would be interested in doing, although again, probably not super soon. Oh, I need to blow my nose. The swings in like temperature and barometric pressure between lots of snow last week and this week is dry as all Hades. It screws my nose a lot. There we go. I don't want to feel like I'm going to be having some drip on stream. It's just a terrible feeling. Terrible, terrible feeling. So I hope that answers you, Queen Blah of Ghosting. And that there are definitely a couple of saltwater things I'm interested in, but they're not things that I have on my I need to do this soon radar. Honestly, like, I just love rainbow fish so much that most of the time I just want to have, if I was ever looking at a tank, I'd be like, what rainbow fish can I put in this one? It's just how I am, unfortunately. I've just fallen so in love with a particular type of fish that they dominate a majority of what I enjoy about the hobby. Plus, they allow me to do plants kind of however I want, and that's the other thing that I love the most about the hobby is planted aquariums. Certainly not high detail aquascapes. I'm not that artsy, but I love nature a lot, and it's my way to get more nature around me is by doing planted tanks. It's just who I be. This is the first snow we've had since a 1-inch snow in 2018. Huh. Okay, so it's the other half of the state that gets snow, though. Well, right, that makes more sense, right? From our conversations at we talked more about this not at Keystone Clash, but when we were at Triple Crown, right? When your wife, you, and I were all sitting at the same table for dinner, I think we talked a bit more about like kind of the part of the state you live in, and that makes a bit more sense if I actually think for more than like 5 seconds. But who does that? Who thinks? That's just crazy talk. Fish Tag TV, Fish Keepers are the very best community. I would agree. The other community that can be really cool, honestly, out there is there's lots of them. Let's be honest here, but the fish community is just so wonderful and loving. You get like maybe one jerk out of, I swear, like 500. It's so rare compared to a lot of other hobbies that are out there where jerk seems like it's the normal. But I was forged in the fire of most like online gaming, so I'm used to some of the worst. Paul Soltero, if you were dedicated to this hobby, you would build an annex to feed your need for glass boxes. If I could afford to do so, Paul, I would have done so years ago. I've told you guys, if I ever won like a crazy lotto, right, to where I don't need to work ever again, I will probably have, in the grand scheme of things, a very small house. I would be content with something that was only like 1,000 square foot as a house. So basically a glorified apartment. But as long as I had like a 4,000 square foot fish building, then I'd be okay. That's the thing. Like, I I do not need a lot of living space. I have a lot of living space because I have like a wife. And there's some room for my fish and my dogs and things like that. But if I didn't have to worry about that, like if I had pastures for my dogs to run in, I could have a significantly smaller house and I wouldn't care. I would not care. But I'd need a giant building for all my fish. Ah, man. Oh, man. Strong style. My wife doesn't allow clownfish or angels. Too much in your business. Really? Really interesting. I mean, I don't see that so much about clowns, but I'm also like, I don't keep saltwater really. So maybe there's something about clowns that like aren't clicking in my head. Like to me, I just think they're like that weird kind of wiggle swim they've got is just adorable. It reminds me a little of like when you watch Corey's wiggle when they're swimming, right? Just little things that I like about them. I like fish for very dopey reasons sometimes. I'll be fully honest with you. Oh man. John Denub, would you say your Plans for Profit series remains true today? I would. So I almost want to ask you in what context? Because yes, I still feel like for the amount of effort it takes to grow plants compared to, say, fish, it is a little easier. However, you are in kind of a perpetual competition when it comes to selling plants if you're trying to do this specifically at a fish store. That's where fish are going to be better because often you can get things that the fish store isn't going to get as regularly through a distributor, but still can be very popular and sell well. An example would be we talked to Robs from the Aquarium Guys podcast, and he's helped found Dee's Fish Co., which is out in North Dakota, right in the Fargo area. And they have a hyper dedicated, like fancy guppy clientele. So they can bring in some wildly expensive guppies and they just sell out if there's something that the guppy people there have not seen before or have been clamoring to find. So if you're one of those people breeding those things, you could do phenomenally well. But if you're in an area like I am, where planted nanotanks are the norm, right? You can very easily sell to public. There's all sorts of... Okay, so you're in the Portland area. Yeah, stores won't. Stores won't because it's so cheap for them to buy from distributors. But you have a fantastic club there, which does events. But more importantly, the Portland and Oregon area has a lot more swaps and things. And most of those, so like whether it's Fishtoberfest, there's a like a plant swap or there's a fish swap that happens a couple times a year. There's another one that's down, I think it's out near the Willamette Valley Club. I'm trying to remember where exactly they host it. And I don't want to say the wrong city. See, you have one this Saturday, right? And one of the benefits of that is because you have such active swaps, you can easily go for a few months and stash up a bunch of plants. And one thing about planet tanks is one of the easiest things that you can breed for profit that sell phenomenally well are shrimp. Shrimp and plants, match made in heaven, right? But you can easily get a ton of plants together and go with some of the approaches that I've talked about in a number of my Plants for Profit series and make great money in a single day on a table that doesn't cost you a lot of money. Most of those places, like a table might cost you anywhere between $50 and about $100. I know that like Fishtoberfest might be slightly more expensive, but it's a 2-day event. So it's one of those things where like, if you think about it, if you have a lot of plants left over and you're putting out pretty good deals, you sell out. Like every time I've taken plants down to swaps, I sell completely out. I'm bringing nothing home. But I have some very straightforward pricing tactics. And I talked about that there's a video I said where it's making like $400 in a day, right? And one of those is like, I will start very frequently at a certain price that I consider really, really, it's one of those, I like pricing in a way that if a person comes to my table and talks to me and likes a plant they're looking at, they would almost feel dumb not to buy from me because the deal is so good. But when you're growing tons and tons of plants, you're not only having like 3 bags of a plant, you're going to have like 30 bags of a plant. Or you're doing like really big bags and those might sell for a bit more, right? It's one of those things where like you can get tons and tons of stuff and plants are relatively easy to pack. They last a bit longer in the bag. You don't have to do quite as much work as you do with say live fish or shrimp. So there's all these things that make it easier to prep for a swap even a couple days in advance and do phenomenally well and sell out. And that's the important thing. No taking stuff home, no having to put stuff back in tanks, sell completely out, thin out what you've got so that as you grow back up, you're just getting prepped for the next swap. And it can be a great way to subsidize your hobby. I've, in the past, paid for multiple tanks in my home just by selling plants. And I firmly believe, especially in the Northwest, where it's a very heavy focus on nano tanks and plants are very, very popular, I firmly believe that you can still do that. I would like to get to a point where I can basically prove, again, by doing it myself, that in a single weekend you could make several $100s, have some fun, and that's on top of buying some things for yourself, right? Still profit several $100s, and do it all on something that costs you not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Because fertilizer is not that expensive, especially if you're doing powdered fertilizers. Shout out to Hector's Everything. Hector's in chat. It's a powdered fertilizer. They tend to be a lot cheaper than a lot of liquid all-in-ones. You can go all the way to like EI dosing or some of the other things that are out there. There's so many options. It's just kind of a pick the one that works best for you, right? Pick what you have the most success with. Because once you've dialed in all those things of what works best for you, you'll grow plants at the rate you want to grow them, but not so excessive that you're like freaking out that you have too many things and you have to waste stuff, or that you're going through way too much CO2 or way too much fertilizer or whatever it is that makes it not as cost efficient as it could be. And realistically, the big expense becomes your lights, right? Good lighting goes a long way, but it doesn't have to be like the Chihiro's Mega Supra Ultra 9000 or the ADA Solar. I mean, if you're doing super high demand plants, maybe. But I found the most success with low and medium demand plants because a majority of people aren't doing these super high tech, crazy highlight tanks at home. So if you have a product that fits the average aquarist in the sense of what plants you're selling, you've expanded your clientele. And it's a lot easier to be like, oh, this plant, all I use is this, this, and this. You don't really need a ton of light. You don't need CO2. I use a little CO2 to boost the growth, but you don't need it with this plant. And it's just easy peasy. Yes, I understand, Stephen P., that Chihiros are wonderful lights. Do not get me wrong. I'm just saying, you don't need them. I'm proof. I've got plenty of tanks that are way overgrown on just a stupid Fluval light. And in the past, a beams work. It's doable. Very doable. Yeah, dude. This is one of my favorite parts about the hobby is trying to help other people. And the willingness of, I would say, 99% of fish keepers who want to just like share their knowledge with other people. It's so rare to find people that are trying to like gatekeep their knowledge. And usually if it is, it's because they're purely reliant on selling a one thing that they've mastered that no one else has, but is a high cost item. Think like a while back when getting knowledge on how to breed zebra plecos was almost impossible, right? Yeah, you're doing a tiered pricing model. Yeah, this is all good stuff. Like I do a pretty simple price model myself. It's really easy, but yeah, even just like colored stickers makes it easy for people to understand. Like, hey, it's red; those are $5 a bag. It's blue; that's $10 a bag. Whatever the heck it may be, right? It makes it very, very easy for people. The easier you could make things, the what at least I have found, the easier I can make it for prospective customers to understand what I'm doing and understand the plant and why it's special, the faster they sell. And the quicker you get to go, I'm done, bye. It can work really well. All right, I know I missed some other stuff. I'm going to catch up 1 second. Paul Sotero ribbing me about an annex. We got that one. Can I dose the plants with magnesium? I feel like I missed something to this. Yes, you can dose magnesium in your aquarium. One of the best ways to do that is with a direct powdered magnesium fertilizer. Just make sure that you're not overdosing it. And it's pretty simple. Most of them will have straightforward directions. You could even use like the liquid ones. As much as I loathe the Seachem Flourish line and its 8,000 products and how overcomplicated it makes it, if you are dealing with a magnesium deficiency, they have some straight up stuff that just gives you what you need, and you can dose that directly, and they have very clear dosing instructions that you can follow and have success. So yes, you can. Strong style. I could live in a Chinese pod unit as long as I have room for plants. I'm with you. I could live in surprisingly small spaces. I want a little bit of room, right? Because I'm a big guy. I need some space, but I don't need a ton. I really don't. I could basically live in the akin of a hotel room as long as it had a kitchen. Yeah, I don't need a lot of space. But then I would need a lot of room for my fish. So I need an extra building in the back. Oh. Paul Sotero, my plant trimmings have been subsidizing some of the hobby expenses since I am bringing them to my auctions. Great. Yeah, that's what I do. Although I've missed a lot of... I've been really busy on most of my club's meetings recently, so I haven't been like having small subsidies of like my extra plants to sell, which is kind of a problem because some of my tanks are like way overgrown at the moment. But yeah. Do you have a moss growing video? Not currently. I do have a tip video that includes one of my biggest tips about moss, which is basically one of my favorite ways to grow some of the more common mosses. So like Java moss and Christmas moss are the two best examples here. And sometimes Physidens fontanus does this really well too, but sometimes it likes to be finicky. Is I will quite literally attach the moss to a top of a sponge filter. And let me explain why. There's a video that does this, but I'll give it because it's a quick enough tip. The natural water flow of the sponge filter will cause your moss to kind of do this wavy thing like this, right? And it gives it something to anchor onto. But more importantly, what it does is it prevents extra detritus from building up on the moss. And one of the things that typically I have found becomes problematic is that as detritus builds up on moss, if there's not enough water flow, that's where I have struggles of either algae getting in the moss or the moss struggling to grow. But that constant little bit of movement around it and that natural suction that's happening that's going to help pull that detritus away and into that sponge helps the moss grow. And then you get to the moss to a certain size, and it's usually about the time that you need to maintenance your sponge, and you just peel the layer off, and you'll have this thin little ring around it still. You go clean your sponge out, you've got that fresh moss there, it'll start regrowing, and you have a good bundle of moss that you can now sell off. I've had this work phenomenally well for me a number of times, most commonly with Java moss. I used to grow a lot of Java moss, and it also works pretty well with Christmas moss in my experience. Those are the two that have done the best. I've had Physidens fontanus do okay. Not grow quite as fast as the other two, but did phenomenally well with the same thing. Some of the more complicated mosses, you're not going to do like the really fancy mosses doing this technique, but it's good for a lot of the more simple ones. I imagine it would work well for like spiky moss and flame moss as well, just because they have a similar kind of necessity when it comes to their growing. But yeah, word of caution plus advice. There's other ways to replicate it, I'm sure. Hood Aquatics, I'll be bringing a lot of the new Val Jacobs Eye to the GSAS auction this spring. Ooh. Interesting. I need to see. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen pictures, but I haven't seen it in person. I need to come back over to your place sometime soon. You've been doing a bunch of crazy stuff lately. What's an easy to grow live food that can feed regularly for 34 to 7-inch clown loaches? I was thinking maybe scuds. Yeah, I would think scuds. And one of the cool things about scuds, this is a trick I learned from Preston John, the puffer god of the United States, as I like to call him lovingly, is that use coarse sponge filters, not as coarse as the current Aquarium Co-op one, but a slightly more coarse, not a super fine sponge. Like the Hydro 5 is perfect as far as size is concerned, but a slightly coarse sponge in a tank full of scuds. Because what will happen is the scuds will go and like use that as a little like living ground, kind of like a big apartment building, and then you can literally just like bag the entire sponge filter, move it over to a tank, and they will slowly filter out, and it's kind of like a continuous stream of live food. That's one way to do it. It's kind of a sweet trick that he taught me that I thought was really cool, and something he does in his fish room. And he grows tons of different live foods, so that would be one that you might consider. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, scuds are really, really effective. They're a really good food source, especially that size of fish. It's just a matter of making sure that the clown loaches can get them, because sometimes scuds like to swim higher water. Not all the time, though. Most of the time, they stay kind of low and slow and in good ranges. Yeah. Yeah. Oinky, has there been a fish you've kept? And chat jumps. Of course. You bastard chat. All right. Has there been a fish you've kept that after a while made you say, nope, I'm never doing this again? For me, common pleco and convict both were donated to me when I was a new fish mom. Common pleco is definitely one of them. I've had a number of them over time. The other fish that really has sealed that for me is a majority of fancy guppies. I know, I've got a guppy species, but a majority of the fancy guppies, they don't, I don't know. I'm not really big on like the like Dumbo ear guppies where they have the excessively large fins. A lot of the patterns, while they're really cool, just they speak to me too much of too hard of line breeding, and you tend to have too much risk of genetic issues that cause like not so great health in the fish. And the more I've kept rainbow fish where I can get like practically any color I want from a natural fish without any crazy line breeding, the more I've gotten away from some of the heavily line bred fish. They don't float my boat that much anymore. There are certain guppies I really do like, but they tend to be simple. And I put this in quotation marks because no guppy is really simple. They're a mess of wonderful colors, but like my blue Hawaiian Moscows, right? They're kind of straightforward. They're not too crazy. They're not really that difficult to keep. You don't have to import them from Thailand once and pay an atrocious amount of money. Although I know that a lot of people like to harp on me for getting fish to them. But it's just one of those things where like the more I've gotten into certain other fish and the natural kind of colors and patterns that you can find elsewhere in other fish, the less and less I've liked a lot of guppies. I think that's one of the ones that I would say is at the top of my list. The other thing is I've never been a very big fan of Epistogramma. It has almost nothing to do with behavior or anything like that. It's just they tend to do best in a style of tank I don't keep. Which is to say, I like keeping rainbows, and Epistos tend to like get a little shy around rainbows because rainbows are a lot bigger than them, a lot faster than them, and it's not a good dither fish for Epistos. So by the nature of what I love to keep the most, it kind of excludes certain fish that are still very cool. And I will admit, lots of Epistos are amazing, cool, have incredible patterns. The Elizabethae is probably my favorite of all the Epistogramma as far as finnage and coloration and all that kind of stuff. But I find myself gravitating toward the things that I've really fallen in love with. And that kind of has a natural, I put this in big quotation marks, so I'm sure Hoon Aquatics will like correct me because he keeps all sorts of different other fish with his rainbows. He's far more successful than I am. I'm just some dummy on the internet. He's a legitimate fish breeder. But I've just found that it naturally, the way that I like to build tanks, set my tanks up, and the fish I like to keep, excludes certain fish by nature. Because I have either had not as great amounts of success with them, or the things that I'm setting up put them in a space where they're more likely to not shine. And they can still live good lives, but they're not like really thriving and at the epitome of what you would like have as a goal for keeping that particular type of fish. I hope that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. I probably don't, but you know. Shirley, is there a way to email you or contact you for viewers? You for your viewers. I've got some things I want to talk to you about, and here is not the right platform. Yeah. Here, I'll shoot you my email in chat. Bentley.pasco@gmail.com. Bam. You can shoot an email to me there. I am a little behind because I've been working my brains out and trying to get prepped for my wife's surgery, but I'm trying to. I got to play catch up this weekend, so hopefully I can get. There's a few emails that have been waiting. One guy definitely needs a response because he's been talking about some potential fish TB with his rainbows, and I got to help him out and try and help there. But yeah. Feel free to email me. Feel free. I just can be kind of slow to respond. I apologize. Oh, let me see here. We're catching up. Oh, man, did I actually catch up? It's a miracle. We did it. Chat, we did it. And basically right at time. Moe Kitsune, what other fish do you think would go well with pseudomcgill species? Great question. So pseudomcgills like to stay more topwater, typically. Not all of them, but typically. So what you want to find are things that stay smaller so that they don't feel threatened. And you might do bottom water stuff. So corridoras are really good. Some of your smaller loaches can do well. Think like dwarf chain loaches, coolie loaches, because coolie loaches like to be in warmer temperatures. There's lots of your small schooling fish that can do very well, whether that's tetras, danios. I wouldn't go for something like a tiger barb or say like a roseline shark. Some of the barbs that get bigger, mascara barbs is an example. But you could do rasboras. Rosy loaches can do very well because they're very, very peaceful. There's tons of options. Basically anything. Think of it like this. Think of pseudomcgills like a tetra, right? In the sense that like they're kind of a similar size. They have a lot of similar like food wants. They are a kind of shoaling fish, not a like super tight schooler. I know some of our tetras are super tight schoolers, and that's what makes them really cool. Rummy Nose is probably the most classic example. But yeah, you can do a group of glass cats. That's actually kind of a cool example because now you've got like this bright, colorful fish with this kind of weird, interesting see-through fish, right? There are lots of options. But basically what you want to do is not get something that gets too big or can be a bit of a bully. However, you want to make sure like some of the things, if you can have different parts of your water column where fish naturally want to be, they might get along even better or make a more interesting aquarium for you. That's why I say things like corridoras can work really, really well. A lot of your smaller placos can do really well if you want maintenance crews. Pseudomcgills can do very well with shrimp because they're not as big. They don't bully shrimp quite like the big boys do, like all the ones I like to keep that will basically murder any shrimp known to man. And it makes me very sad because I like shrimp, but I can't ever be successful because I keep rainbows. Yeah. Why did I fall in love with that dumb, beautiful fish? Oh, never mind. I know why. They're so pretty. I can't help it. But yeah, there's lots of options. I hope that helps. Hope it helps. All right, gang. Oh, there you go. Danya has some with lamp eye rasboras. Oh, Norman's lamp eye killifish would also be really cool because they're a little more peaceful than some of the other ones. But you could do. Just keep in mind, have a lid. Right? Because pseudos like to jump. So have a lid. But yeah, there are a lot of options. Basically, anything that could live with a tetra should be able to live with a pseudomcgill. That would be kind of my rule to think of. Mickey M, I just ordered the pseudomcgill Gertrude Aru4 from a breeder in our killifish club. That beautiful fish. Beautiful. All the Gertrude are really cool fish. Especially when they full fan their fins out and go on display and they kind of do what I've always called battle shipping in big rainbows, but where they sit side by side and they just spin circles around each other showing off for the girls. It's one of my favorite things that rainbow fish do, and pseudomcgills by proxy because they do the same behavior. Because I love when they do it. It's always fun for me to watch. I will stare at that for hours on end like a dum-dum. Because it just ticks something off in the brain that makes me go, ah. That's nice. Look at them. Look at those beautiful dummies. Look at them showing off. It's great. Peace. It's good stuff, man. We all find that thing that we love in our crappie, right? Some people love those big silly tiger Oscars and how they're kind of like big water puppies and how they'll throw fits. Some people like having heart attacks all the time and keep loaches. Oh man. All right, gang. Uh I hope, I really, really hope you all had a fantastic week and continue to have a good week. If you are in a relationship, I hope that your Valentine's Day goes smoothly and is not too much of a pain. I hope you just have like, I have a very chill relationship. Thankfully, my Valentine's Day is I think we're just going to have some okay dinner at the house. We're pretty chill about it. We don't celebrate that hard. If you're single, I hope your Single Awareness Day goes very, very well. And you get a nice relaxing time. Or I don't know. Who knows? Maybe have a date. I don't know. Date with some fish. Sit there, watch fish, feed them a little candlelight, a little Barry White in the background. You never know. Might get some fish spawning going on. Might have some new babies soon. Quit barking. Ooh, that's time to go. They're barking at each other. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome. I'll see you next week. And then who knows what's going to happen because that's when the surgery happens.